Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, depending on your time zone, and welcome to the intro call for Marathon Lead Generation and Conversion. My name is Richard Schulman. I'm a MAPS coach and agent here in the Santa Monica, Los Angeles area. Chris, are we on okay?
Yes, everything's going great. Thanks so much, Richard.
Perfect. Okay, great. So we're going to go over a brief phone call today. What I want to cover today is just kind of walking you through the course, what we're going to be offering over the next 5 weeks, starting tomorrow. We're going to go over a couple of highlights of the course within the slideshow today, and then we'll have a little bit of time for questions at the end. So if you have questions, hold them for the end, or you can send them through your webinar screen. So great. So let me give you a little background on myself. Like I said, my name is Richard Schulman. I've been an agent at KW for just over 9 years. I just capped for the 9th consecutive time this month. I've been a mega agent running a team for about the last 6 years, and I've sold almost 1,000 homes, 165 last year for $100 million. The goal in teaching this class, it's a class I've been teaching locally and in California, as far as basically how do we increase our conversion? How do we make more money by working the same amount of time, right? How do we maximize the time that we're working? When I run this with my team, I see that my team is not getting there to where they need to be, so we sort of developed this program to help them, and the results have been incredible. So I want to share that with KW. So that's what we're going to do now. So Chris, go to the next slide, please. So the core of the class, and it sounds very simple, and it is very simple, but we're going to be attacking it in a very precise way to make sure that we get the absolute best result. But the absolute premise of the class is how do you sit down and make 25 purposeful dials in 1 hour? And it may seem overly simple, and it may seem like you're doing it now, but I promise you in years of testing people, we've never seen anyone get 25 calls in an hour the first time they've tried to do it. We see they get 12, they get 14, they get 8, they get maybe 16 sometimes, but not 25. So the premise is if I can teach you to make 25 calls in an hour, you're going to be a lot more effective. Can we go to the next screen, Chris? Thanks. So here's the challenge. I want you guys to sit down and after the call, today, tomorrow, make 25 calls in an hour. Just sit down, pick up the phone, dial 25 times, make a little hash mark on a notepad every time you dial the phone. So the question comes up, are these just dials? Yeah, we're just talking about pick up the phone and then dial, either leave a voicemail or you talk to someone. If you're not making at least 20 calls, you're not operating at full capacity during your lead generation. Right there on the screen, it's so crucial. Again, why I really like this class and why this is the subject matter I teach most often here for my team, for my market centers, is this is the core of our business. If we can't sit down and make the 25 calls, nothing else matters. There's not anything else I need to teach my junior agents or agents and market centers I'm involved with if they're not making 25 calls. Because showing properties, writing offers, handling escrows, none of that matters if you don't have those things to deal with. So this is how we're going to get into production. So the course will walk you through, it's not just how do you make 25 calls an hour, it's how do you make them good calls, how do you track the calls, how do you end up making more, how do you end up converting more appointments from those calls. So it's sort of an all-encompassing starter class for how do you really make your lead generation more efficient and more streamlined. I did this challenge on Monday with my team to make sure that we were doing it correctly, and 6 of the 7 of us hit 25, 1 had 22, a lot had over that. I had 41 calls in the hour and 2 appointments. So that's really the goal, is how do you get to appointment. Chris, go to the next slide, please. So we start off, I'm going to give you the basics. We start off with some really basic things that may seem overly simple, and I want you to understand that what agents are not doing is agents are not being professional in the sense that they're not showing up to work early all the time. They're not working in the most professional way. So we're going to start off with some real basics. Clear off your desk. Next. The biggest challenge I think people have is they don't have the phone numbers to call. So we're going to talk a little bit about sourcing numbers to call. There's a few different avenues of how do you get actual leads to call. Obviously, that's a big challenge, especially if you're newer. We're also going to be talking about how you get those calls really loaded up in your screen so that you're ready to make those calls. So preparing your list means if you want to make 25 calls in an hour, you have to have 25 numbers ready to dial. And when I see agents doing that, they're not prepared for that. So these are the little tricks. When you try later today or tomorrow to do this, this is going to really help you at least boost your numbers a little bit. Go ahead, Chris. Then you're going to make the phone calls. Then you're going to pick up the phone and dial. And the key here is that you don't stop calling. The key here is that you make the phone calls for an hour. So a lot of this stuff comes from The One Thing by Jerry Papasan and Gary Keller. The real key is that we want to make sure that when you make your phone calls that you're setting out at least 2 one-hour blocks of calling time every day, and that during those 2 one-hour calling blocks you make 25 dials. That's 50 dials a day. I guarantee you the vast majority of agents aren't doing that. I've sold $500 million in homes. People say, well, Richard, what do you do? What are you good at? Well, I'm not particularly great at anything except for making my dials purposefully. I haven't missed lead generation for a single weekday in 12 years of real estate. As I come to the office early, I sit down and I make my phone calls every day, and nothing else happens until I make those lead generating phone calls. So we want to kind of turn you into a human auto dialer, right? So if you're familiar, a lot of people are using auto dialers now. I don't personally use one. Some of my team members do. If you do use one, we're still going to have a lot of training that you can apply to your use of the auto dialer as far as purposing calls. The auto dialer saves you the trouble of having to consistently pick up and dial the phone. But we want to make you into a human auto dialer. We want you to be able to make the calls as fast as the auto dialer can. And we want you to make the calls. Then once we solve that, we're going to work on making them purposeful calls for appointments. Go ahead, Chris. So here's the challenge. Each call that you make less than 25 per hour is stealing money from you. And we'll talk about mindset a little bit. We'll talk about motivation. We'll talk about why are you here? Why are you selling real estate? And if you're not giving it your all, if you're not giving it 25 dials an hour, if you're not going every day and bringing that energy to your lead generation, you're basically stealing money from yourself and from your goals and from your big rocks and your one thing. So whatever your one thing is, mine is my children. I feel that if I'm not making those calls, that I'm letting them down. I'm away from them right now, and I'm here to support them. So I have to work at the highest level possible. Go ahead, Chris. So here's some simple math. So I think that a lot of people maybe hear this and they think, well, what does this number of calls mean, and is that really important? And well, I made 20, isn't that good enough? Or I made 17, that's pretty good. The point is let's look at the math here. If we're doing 10 more calls a day, 10 more calls an hour, twice a day, 5 times a week, 50 weeks a year, we're talking about thousands of more calls, right? So my question to you is if I can show you a way to make thousands more phone calls a year without working any harder, without spending any more time working, without taking long nights and weekends working and making phone calls, would that be of value to you? And that's a great tie-down close. We'll work on those too. But the point is first of all, I want to show you how to make thousands more calls per hour, per year, every year. And then I'm going to show you in the back half of the class, in the last couple calls, we're going to really work on making those extremely purposeful calls. So not only are we making more calls, we're making better calls. We're going to make those calls with a higher number of appointments. We're going to work on scripting. We're going to work on scripting for closes and appointments. One thing I'll add, it's not on the slide deck here, but in the second half of the class when we talk about purpose and scripting, the point of a phone call is not to make a phone call, right? I teach you at the beginning to make the phone calls because when you make the phone calls at the beginning, it's the first domino to fall. That's from The One Thing again, and we're going to work a lot with that book. The first domino to fall is making those phone calls. Once I can teach you to make 25, now I want to teach you how to make 2 appointments an hour. So we're going to talk about how do you get people on and off the phone more quickly? How do you move for a close more quickly? A lot of people get on the phone for 30 minutes and think they've made a good phone call, and that's not the case. The point of a phone call is to make an appointment. So we're going to work on that. So a couple other hints I'll give you. I want to show you some value on this free call here. One of the biggest things that I've done that's improved my production on the phone and my team's production is we do a lot of standing and walking around while we're calling. So we're not sitting down when we're calling generally, especially our quieter agents. We make them stand up. We put mirrors at everyone's desk so they can see themselves smiling and dialing. We're going to actually smile. Right now I'm smiling while I'm talking to you. I have a standing desk that I'm at. We're going to get you moving. People can feel your energy. You transfer your energy across the phone. So we're going to be focusing on every aspect of those calls. So when I say 25 dials an hour, that's the hook. That's the real exciting part of it. But we're going to focus on how do we improve every aspect of that transaction. How do we get you to make the best possible 25 phone calls an hour? Because there's a big difference. 25 bad phone calls an hour, you might as well make 5 good ones. So we're going to walk through the whole process. Go ahead, Chris. So so the question is, why are we not doing this? The question is that I ask my agents when I see them sitting down making phone calls at a lower energy level, when I see them making 18 dials instead of 25, when I see them on the phone for 12 minutes instead of what we have a 3-minute, 5-minute rule, which I'll go over, is why are we not doing it? So we're going to talk a lot about motivation and goals every class. I'm totally focused on my goal. I watched the class that's being taught in my office yesterday, and Bold teacher Wayne, a lot of stuff about goals. How do we really be focused on our goals? If you're focused on your goals, it's a lot easier to make those phone calls. So we're going to work a lot on that. So it's a lot of different aspects of it. What's the goal for each call? The goal for each call is to get you to make an appointment. So I don't want to ever lose focus on the goal of picking up the phone. Every time I pick up the phone, I want to meet with someone in person. I want to talk about buying a home, selling their home, getting a referral, any type of purposeful conversation. So the last really good nugget I'm going to share with you, this is something I came up with several years ago, and I've had it taped in my desk and all my team members' desks, is we figured out how much money we wanted to make every year, and we divided that by each phone call we made. And it started off that I thought each phone call was worth $40. And I'll walk you through the math during the class, but for most agents, a phone call is worth $40 to $50 if you divide your average number of phone calls per year divided by your desired commission. And if you're really tired or you don't want to pick up the phone and dial 4 more times, then you have to start thinking, what's this phone call worth to me? Now I'm at a higher level. I'm doing this longer. I'm working at a higher price point. I think that every time I pick the phone, it's worth $100 to me. So you can be sure I'm trying to pump out 41 dials every hour because that's a $4,100 hour for me. I'm going to encourage you to calculate this out. We'll go over it in the class, but if you want to start with 40, that's fine. Print this out in as big a font that you can stick on a page and tape it where you can see it from your workstation. And until you internalize it. And people will come in and see it and think it's silly. But I have all my team members doing this, and a lot of people I've worked with still do this. We think that our phone calls are worth a lot of money each, and we want to be completely aware of that all the time. Go ahead, Chris. So let me give you just a quick recap, and we have a little bit of time for questions if you guys have some questions after this. So what we're going to do, here's the basics. We're going to show you how to double and triple your call volume. We're going to get you making more phone calls per hour. One of the reasons I want you to go sit down today, tomorrow, and actually make those phone calls is I want to actually see what we're starting with, what's the baseline, so we can show you improvement. After that, we're going to really work on conversion rate. It's really, they're equally important in this conversation, is that if we're not converting more, there's no point in making more phone calls. These habits, the habits that we're going to learn, efficiency and calling and conversion, this is going to trickle up and down to other parts of your business. It's going to improve how you look at showings. It's going to improve your mindset regarding leverage, and it's also going to help you really work more efficiently and effectively with your clients when you're in person, showing properties, writing offers, that type of thing. We want to strip away bad stuff. We want to get rid of the stuff that's not going to lead to conversion. So the more that you do, the more that you can cut away. The more positive lead generation and conversion you have, the more poor clients and poor leads we can get rid of that are not going to convert. The ones that are not loyal clients, they're not motivated buyers and sellers. And then in each class, or almost every class, we're going to go over a lot of scripting. And like the class in general, the scripting is simple. It's just that I need to show you an effective way to implement it into your business, right? The scripts are good. The scripts are simple. 25 calls an hour is simple, but I want to get you to implement it positively in your business. So I'm going to give you the same scripting that we use on the Richard Schulman team. As of this morning, we have 30 open escrows in Los Angeles, which is an incredible number for our price point. And that translates anywhere in the country. That translates in higher price points and lower price points too. So we'll go over that in 5 weeks of calling, and we'll have a lot of support material for you guys to take home. When you sign up for the call, you'll get a lot of support material as well that you can use to implement and to continue and maintain what you're doing. Go ahead, Chris. Next slide. So Chris and I have a promotion that we wanted to run for you guys. So I have a double-sided script card that I use, and I'll send you the PDF. That script card has the scripts that we keep at our desk. Basically has any of the easy scripts, that the most common ones, the common objection handles. If you sign up in the next 2 hours, I'm going to email you a copy of that you can print out. We laminate them because we have a messy team. We spill a lot of coffee here. But you're going to find that this is a really powerful thing to have at your desk, because by having the script card at your desk, when someone asks you an objection, you can quickly scan to it and see what are the 2 or 3 best answers to the most common objections. That's just one of the many things. We'll give you a lot of other material throughout the class as well that will help support that. So the class starts tomorrow. It's at 11 o'clock Central, 9 Pacific. I guess that'd be 12 Eastern. I'm Pacific over here in LA. We're going to run the class for 5 consecutive Fridays. The class is a lot of material. There will be a lot of time for question and answer in each class. And the third class will be sort of a recap where we're really going to dive deep and do a lot of questions and sort of one-on-one coaching on the call for everyone to hear. We're really going to dive deep into how it's been going so far and sort of troubleshooting problems people are having. The goal for me is not just to get a webinar going and talk to you, basically talking to a computer screen right now for 5 one-hour calls. I really, really want to have an interactive class. I personally learn better that way. When I go out and teach at market centers or online, I really demand that the attendees join me in speaking about what they're doing, because I want to know what you're having trouble with and how I can help you. If I'm not helping you, if I'm not helping you grow, then I'm letting you down, and that's really important for me not to do. So I really want you guys to know that this is a very highly involved call with a lot of information and a lot of follow-up and feedback. So it's $149. It was really important to me to have just a minimum price on it, and it's five one-hour classes starting on Friday. So, Chris, that's my whole presentation. I don't know if anyone has any questions they want to cover.
Absolutely. We've got quite a few questions. The first was from Dan Grebe. What do you think about Mojo Dialer?
Oh,
Mojo Dialer.
Hey, Dan. Welcome back, Dan. I don't personally use Mojo Dialer because I'm sort of a dinosaur in that regard, but I have 3 people on my team use Mojo Dialer, and they're all really happy with it. So I probably should be using it, but I'm just so set in my ways, and I have a really good system. I don't want to mess with it. But yeah, I think auto dialers are the future. I think if we have this call in 3 years, it'll be the how to use your auto dialer more effectively class, because I think that's the way things are going. But we're going to work with auto dialers. I have some content based on that, and we're going to work on how to improve your conversion and your speed using auto dialers. But yeah, we have 3 accounts, maybe 4 accounts for our team.
Great. Karen Phillip is asking, and I kind of hope the answer is no, are you using Mike Ferry scripts?
So I don't know. I don't use any particular Mike Ferry scripts. The scripts I use are just things that we've developed over time. Just trial and error of doing. I figured out one time I'd probably make like 100-something thousand phone calls in 12 years of doing this. Probably more than that by now. But I just use trial and error, and the script cards that we're going to send out if you sign up in the next couple hours, that's something that the whole team collaborated on, and we've updated over time.
Great. Karen Gill is asking, how many days are spent on conversion?
Every day. Every day is conversion.
Perfect.
Karen, your only job is to pick up the phone and get people to meet with you. If you can't get people to meet with you, they're not going to list their home, they're not going to do a buyer meeting, they're not going to do a showing. So we do lead generation and conversion every day. Now, something I do, I'll talk about on the first call, is we actually do a lot of extra lead generation on Mondays and Thursdays, but we are consistent every day. There has to be time for lead generation and conversion.
Great. Gustavo's asking, I have an ISA team that is focused on nurtures, not always appointments, because they do circle prospecting. Is this still a class for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so obviously the goal is appointments, but you only get to appointment if you're nurturing people. So our business is, very heavily repeat and referral. So we're calling. I have a stack of listings right now that are people we sold properties to 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, and they're calling us. They're not calling us for a listing appointment. They're calling us to list their homes. So this is exactly what you need to be doing. You need to be getting people, in your nurture program. You need to be following up with them and adding value. We're going to talk a lot about adding value to phone calls when there's no appointment to be made, because that's going to ultimately lead to appointment. When you build your pipeline, you might make 50 calls and you might have 8 nurture calls, but there's still an appointment or 2 out there. So it's definitely crucial to have these skills for nurturing clients.
Great. Janine is asking if the scripts will be only for listings or will there be buyer lead scripts as well?
So the majority of the scripting that we use are for converting for appointment. And there's no difference in converting for an appointment if it's a seller, if it's a buyer, or even just if it's someone you want to nurture and go out. We do a lot of coffee dates here is one of our things. So we want you to make a lot of coffee dates with your friends, family, sphere, and past clients, anyone that you know, because those are good nurture interactions. I mean, the scripts are slightly tailored for buyer meeting and for seller meeting, but it's still the same, pick up the phone, dial, can I come meet with you?
Great. Karen asks, I need help trying to systematize lead follow-up. Is this program right for me?
Yeah, we're gonna help you organize your leads. We're gonna make sure everyone's using a proper lead generation database, a CRM. We're gonna make sure you're creating a daily hot sheet of leads to call, and we're gonna help you categorize those leads and develop follow-up programs for those leads. So when we have a lead, we know based on the quality of the lead how often we're going to contact them and how often they'll get automated follow-up from us.
Okay. Kathy wanted clarity. Will I need to have a dialer for this class?
No, absolutely not. I would assume that the majority of people will not have a dialer, and that's totally fine. I think dialers are going to be the wave of the future, but I know they're not here yet. I think soon people will be on them. So the having or not having a dialer is not going to really matter for the call. I'll address both situations.
Great. I have a couple I'm going to answer real quick. Is there a discount for KW Maps coaching clients? We've priced this program so well that there actually are no additional discounts at this time. The second is I'm out of town next week. Is the class recorded so I can catch up? Yes, all sessions will be recorded and available to you guys for the entire duration of the program, plus 60 days afterwards. Okay.
Yeah, and Chris, we have a, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm good.
Okay, we have a Facebook group set up that we'll send out to all the attendees. That'll have the links to the recorded calls. It'll have all the materials, and then it'll also have support ongoing, and you'll be able to ask me questions, and I'll be happy to answer them.
Okay, great. Hank asks, our answering rate is around 3 to 5%. Is that too low for outbound calls?
That's probably fairly normal. It sounds like he's probably calling more, more cold dialing versus calling sphere. So that's fine. I mean, that's one of the reasons why you need to make more phone calls, because you need to get pickups. If you're getting a 3% answer rate, then you're probably able to make, using a dialer, probably 60 to 90 calls an hour on a 1 to 3 line dialer. And if you're manually dialing and it's getting a 3% answer rate, you should probably get an auto dialer, because you probably don't need to be manually dialing. One of the reasons I like to manually dial is that I'm calling a warm sphere, so I have a very high answer rate. But if you're getting a low answer rate, you can just make a lot more calls per hour. So A, it's crucial that you make more calls per hour, and B, you have to be really strong on your conversion and appointment setting, because if you're not, that 1 out of 20 that's answering the phone is that's a once in a while time for you to make an appointment. So an even better reason to be sharp.
Great. Tori asks, how do your scripts deal with the shift that's beginning?
Well, so they're not really shift based, because we're just trying to make appointments with people. So we can talk a little bit about during the class as far as what's happening in the marketplace. So one of our good nurture scripts is when we call people, we have a sort of a script that wants to kind of feel out what they're looking to do. And if they're not interested, we want to just remind them that we're the real estate expert. So one of the calls we do is we say, hey, Chris, just wanted to give you a quick call. How's the house I sold you last year? Great. How's the family? Fantastic. Are you interested in any information about the market? And if you say, yeah, maybe I'll give you a quick market update, which would include some shift information. And if you say, well, yeah, I'm thinking about selling, well, then I have a nice opportunity to convert you right there. So we talk about the shift as far as a market update, but it doesn't change the fact that we need to lead generate, we need to convert leads. It only makes it more important.
Awesome, thank you. Eduardo asks, calling SOIs scares the you-know-what out of me. Is this a class for me?
Well, it definitely is, because you need to get over that, and we'll work on that. That's a common thing. You definitely can't be afraid of calling your sphere. I'll be honest with you, when I was a new agent, I was a little nervous to call my friends, and one of the reasons I was nervous was because I thought I was supposed to call them and ask for money, basically. Like, hey, Chris, can you buy a house for me because I have a new job in real estate? And that's the wrong attitude to take towards it. The attitude is, I'm in real estate, I have something of value, which is I have information about the real estate market, and I would love to share it with you. And I'll tell you this, I think it was Eduardo, is that right? Everyone wants to know about real estate. I have yet to talk to anyone who is not interested in real estate. I have yet to talk to anyone who is not interested in buying a rental property for themselves to own and collect rent on. So, hopefully that's enough to get you over the hump. But I think once you get in the mindset that I have to make 25 dials, if you really hold yourself accountable to making those dials, then you're not even going to have time to think, oh, I don't want to call this guy right now, or I'm scared to call this person. You're just going to think, man, I really have to call this person, or I'm not going to hit my 25 dials, and Coach Richard is going to be disappointed in me.
Great. Hank asks, 25 calls per hour you mentioned is about our database or pure outbound calls?
So the calls is really from database. If you're using a dialer and you're calling, if you're calling lists, you're cold dialing, you're calling expireds, anything like high volume like that, we'll talk about numbers, but it's going to be a lot higher number than that. When I say 25, it's going to be 25 purposeful dials to your database, people that, if they answer the phone, are going to at least have an idea of who you are. If you're calling expireds and using a dialer, then it's probably got to be 3 times that many at least. And if you're calling a list, cold calling a list, manually it has to be more than 25. I think that if you're cold calling a list with with a low answer rate, then it's got to be more like 35 to 40 an hour, because fewer people are obviously just going to pick up that phone call.
Great. Dan asks, we use Boomtown to organize our leads. Have you had success with this?
So we use Top Producer. I know a lot of people who use Boomtown. All I really need your CRM to do, whether it's eEdge or Boomtown or Commissions Inc. or whatever it is, I just need it to simply print out a list or have an exportable list of at least 50 calls to make, and that's for manual. If you're using a dialer, it's obviously got to have a lot more. But if you're, one of the keys to sitting down and calling is if you don't have 25 to 50 numbers lined up to call, at some point you're going to break your rhythm, break your momentum, and you're going to have to stop, go find numbers, and then it's all over. You're not going to really keep that momentum going. It's like going to the gym, Chris. If you go to the gym and you stop every 3 minutes to change your shoes or to have a snack, you're not going to get the best hour out of your workout.
Perfect. One question I want to address really quickly. Janet mentions she's having trouble using this URL. If you guys are, just go to mapsgroupcoaching.com and find the marathon lead generation box, and you can register from there as well. So mapsgroupcoaching.com is a second way to get to us. Also, if you have any specific questions, you can email us at fasttrack, F-A-S-T-T-R-A-C-K, @kw.com. So Richard, I think we've got a couple more questions here. Let me see. Sort of address this. I'm an inside sales manager for a mega agent. Will this program be of value to my ISAs?
Yeah, absolutely, because we know from experience, my buyer's agents, Chris, on my team are like ISAs. I mean, they go out and they're in the field, but we treat their lead generation like ISA lead generation. if you manage ISAs, you need to pump more productivity out of them. The ISA, in my mind, is the easiest position that I can improve through this class, because those are people who are solely motivated and focused on picking up the phone, calling as many times as possible, and making appointments. So we're definitely going to focus on, how do you increase that? That's exactly what ISAs are doing.
Great. And last question we're going to address, Brenda asks, if I have a small database because I recently relocated, is this class still beneficial?
Yeah, of course. The skills are the same. The skills are things that you need to learn to improve when you have a bigger database, so it's good to build good habits now. But, we'll talk a little bit about where you're going to find leads from, and that's going to be, hopefully over the next several weeks you can build your database to the point where you have a few hundred numbers to call. But you have to build the skills. There's no point in building the wrong habits now. Let's build the right habits now, so when you have the database, it's just second nature to you.
Thank you so much. Richard, we want to thank you. MAPS is very excited to be partnering with you on this. It's a real honor to be in business with you. We respect all of the things you've accomplished, and obviously you know your stuff. Do you have any closing thoughts for these guys?
No, just that I'm really excited to do this class. It's a real passion of mine. I see too often, Chris, that agents aren't getting the productivity they should. Chris, if you do this job, if you're selling real estate, you should make a lot of money. The first thing I learned when I took my real estate principles class is a teacher would just scream at us, if you're not making $100,000 a year, get out of the business. And he's right. That was 12 years ago. So with inflation, that's got to be more. But he's right. This is a job with long hours and inconsistent income and a lot of emotions that you're dealing with. You deserve to get paid for it. The beginning of that is generating more appointments to go on. So I'm really passionate about it. I'm really excited to share it, and I hope that I can add an extreme amount of value to everyone who signs up.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Richard, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Here.